Okay, now let's try to understand what is a ER diagram. ER diagram stands for Entity Relationship Diagram. But before we understand this diagram, it's required to understand what is an entity. Anything in this world which is having an existence is called as an entity. It is called as an entity. Where is Satya? Satya, please stand. He is an entity. He is having existence on this earth. He exerts some pressure on earth. इसी को हिंदी में बोलते हैं धरती पे बोझ. I'm not saying every person in this world exerts some pressure on Mother Earth. Am I right? Okay, so that is nothing but something called as an entity. That is nothing but something called as an entity. Now there are several entities you will see around this world. Okay, this mic is also an entity, because it is having its existence. A bench is an identity, that projector is an identity, that camera is an identity, this building premises is an entity. Am I right or wrong? Now, these entities have some relationship between them. Now, I don't want to speak about the relationship between a mic and a speaker. Everyone knows about it. I would like to define some complex relationships. One option available with me is I'll directly show you the diagram. This is the diagram. And this is how the relationship is been set. Or this is how the relationships exist. The other way around, the difficult way is I'll construct a diagram before you. How to note the entities, how to set the attribute, finding out the key attribute, first setting the relationship between two entities, and then you are supposed to form a complex relationship. What should I do? Second option? Okay, then please concentrate and maintain this silence. Before taking a particular example or before drawing a diagram, let's try to understand what are the components of this ER diagram. First and the foremost thing is ER diagram is a data modeling technique. Data modeling technique means the data will be placed, the entities will be placed, and you need to set the relationship between them. That's called as data modeling. And because it is a diagram, it is a graphical representation of the events, graphical representation of the relationships that exist between different events or between different entities. And last is the symbols used. So what are the various symbols used? Number one, as you can see over here, is called as entity. And I told you, entity is anything which is having a physical existence in this world. A car is an entity. A person is an entity. A company is an entity. A premises, property is entity. Understanding? Next is called as attribute. Now, what is this attribute? Attribute is the data about that entity. I would say further that this particular attribute gives me concrete information about that entity. Let's try to understand how. Satya, or I would say, yeah, boy, what's your name? Satya. This is the information about this boy. Where do you stay? Where? Whatever he said. That is again a attribute, okay, about this entity. Understanding? What's your age? 18. 80? 18. Okay, 18 is the age. That is nothing but an attribute. Now you must have enrolled with the CA Institute. Okay, do you have any enrollment number, something like that? You have? What is that number? Acha, he said 420. 420. That is his enrollment number with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Again, that is a attribute. Understanding what are attributes? It is just the information about a specific entity. Next thing is called as the key attribute. It means the most important attribute. If I say Satya, there are n number of people in this world having name Satya. Address whatever he said, or the name of the city or the place, there are n number of people who are living in that particular place. I asked him age. There are n number of people in this world having age 18. Forget about the world. In this classroom, maximum number of students will be having the age 18 because you are of the same age group. All this data is repeated, and this data itself is not enough to describe the entity. So which is that particular attribute which is unique to this entity? Yes, and that is his enrollment number. Whatever is his enrollment number will not be available with any other person. Like for example, I have an Aadhaar card. The number on my Aadhaar card will be unique to me only. Not even my other family members. It will be unique to me. Permanent account number, which is used by income tax department. Again, it is unique for me only. My employee code in MT Educare, it is unique only to me. Such unique attributes which can specify a entity on its own is nothing but a key attribute. And last but not the least is relationship. When there are two entities, you can set a relationship between them. Today, Satya is a single person. Tomorrow he'll be double. I mean to say he'll get married, husband and wife. There exists some relationship. There exists some relationship between he and his wife, and that is nothing but marriage. People are required to be invited. Home, puja, n number of things are required to be performed in front of all the relatives and friends. Am I right or wrong? Okay. भगवान के साक्षी से अगर शादी होती है तो उसी को शादी मानते हैं, वरना उसको लिव इन रिलेशनशिप बोलते हैं. Now there is a other way of getting married, and that is doing registration. But I don't believe it. If you think from bottom of your heart, it is not been approved by the society. Just signing of two people and law approves. I don't follow this. I don't accept to this. It has to be done in front of several people in all that homes and havans and the existence of the God. Then that Saptapadi round you go. So two entities coming together, and that relationship has to be defined, and that is inside that diamond shaped box. Okay, rhombus you can call, whatever. I don't make out what exactly that shape is, and that defines the relationship. Are you understanding the components? Yes or no? Yes, sir. So if you have understood all these components or symbols very well, then only we can construct a diagram. Okay, shall I start construction of a diagram? Yes, but before that, let's welcome our latecomers. Please come in. We are now beginning with drawing a ER diagram. We are constructing a ER diagram. The case is somewhat in this way. The case is somewhat in this way. There is a car insurance company. This car insurance company provides insurance cover to different car owners for their different cars, right? And everyone knows compensation is given only when an accident occurs. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
It's not like life insurance, that after a specific period of time you will be getting a compensation. Every year you have to pay premium for your car insurance. If there is no accident, then obviously that money goes to the insurance company and you are protected from accident. Protected from accident means you'll be getting a compensation. So we are supposed to draw a ER diagram, or we are supposed to construct a ER diagram which sets the relationship between the person, the car, the accident, the insurance company and the compensation amount that they are supposed to get. How this relationship will be described. Let's start with a person. Now here we have a person. Just give a pencil. Now person, I said person is nothing but an entity. An entity, as we all know, should be put inside a rectangular box. So this is the person inside a rectangular box. Okay? That section, boys. Calm down. Stay quiet. Now, this person has to be identified. Now, that person might be having some name, and name becomes the attribute of that person. So I'm saying name. And this name is the attribute of this person. A person must be residing somewhere. That is his address. So that becomes one more entity, one more attribute for me. It's the address. Now name and address is not enough. I require something more than that. Every person, we are setting relationship between a person and a car. Okay? So if a person and a car relationship is been set, obviously that person might be driving. Okay? So he might be having a license. Every license has a number, it has a ID. So I am saying license ID. Are you understanding the first part? Yes, I have created an entity and I have added attributes to it. Now think about the name of that person. This name must be an important part of that person. Am I right? But this name is not exclusive to that person. Na? The same name can be there for different people. So it cannot be the key attribute. The address also cannot be the key attribute, because that person's dad, his brother, his sister, maybe his wife, his mother, they might be driving also. They will be having the same address. So address cannot be once again the key attribute. Key attribute is that unique thing which is exclusively used by this particular person. And in this particular case, that is, yes, the license ID, the license number is unique to each and every person. And that's why I need to underline this. So this attribute, which is inside an oval shape and underlined, is called as the key attribute. Okay, so we have successfully defined one entity along with its attributes. Is this concept clear? Okay, now we are taking into consideration the next entity, and that is car. So I have One more entity. Car. Whenever we describe about a car, we would like to know the model of the car, that is the company, the model and the type. But I'm not interested in company. Model means everything. Maruti, Suzuki, Dzire, VDI. So everyone knows which car I'm talking about. So that is called as the model. The model of the car. Then suppose you are buying a second-hand car. One of the important questions which is asked is, of which year it is? What is the manufacturing year? Am I right or wrong? And that is nothing but, I'll call it as make. Which year's make it is? So this becomes the next attribute, make. Or you can also call it as the year of manufacturing. Anything you can define. So model is the attribute of the car. Make is the attribute of the car. Registration number of the car is very, very important. So I call it as R number, registration number. It is also an attribute of the car. It is also an attribute of the car. Now, model. You may have n number of cars of a specific model. N number of cars are manufactured in a specific year. That is, the make is same. Right? But the registration number is that attribute which is unique to this particular car. And so, I am underlining this. And that becomes the key attribute. Okay? So now we have two entities. Can I set a relationship between them? There can be only one relationship. Owning it. Can a car own a person? No. Can a person own a car? Yes. Absolutely yes. There is no other option available. And the relationship is being set with the help of a. So can I say owns, person owns the car. So now we are able to set relationship between two entities. But that's not the solution of the problem that we are having on our hand. We are trying to find out the compensation amount for an accident which has taken place about a specific car which is owned by someone. So the solution is still far away. Now let's talk about one more event, and that is accident. Okay, so again, an accident is an event. Yes, that is visible. And because it is visible, we can also call it as an entity. Now, what attributes can we mark for a particular accident? Number one, it could be the location, where exactly it happened. So I have the first attribute with me. It's called as the location, and that becomes the attribute of accident. When that accident occurred, that's called as the date and time. But let's just say date. Whenever an accident takes place, a police complaint is done, and that complaint is been registered in that particular premises police station. So that complaint must be having a ID, okay, or a report. So we can say report number. We can say report number. Now we have all the attributes. All the required attributes are present. Let's try to understand which is the key attribute. I know it is very simple, but analyze each and every attribute. Try to understand how exactly it is constructed. If I talk about location, in a specific location, there could be n number of accidents. At a specific date, there could be n number of accidents. But whenever I am talking about a specific report number, it tells me about one specific accident only. So obviously, it becomes the key attribute. Understanding? Okay, so this is called as a key attribute. Okay. Now, an accident has taken place. So now we require the insurance company to pay the compensation amount. Insurance company, is it an attribute or an entity? Yes, now you are understanding this ER diagram. Let's take insurance company. There might be some name of insurance company. There might be some ID of this insurance company which is registered with the stock markets. Okay, and in this particular case, what are we expecting from an insurance company? The compensation amount. So I am saying compensation amount. That is the attribute, na? So compensation amount is one such attribute in which we are interested. In which we are interested. Okay. Now we are trying to set a relationship between all the existing entities. Okay. We have person, we have a car, we have a accident. Now all these three are the participants of accident. So we are setting a relationship called as and this participation is nothing but a relationship. In participation, the car has to participate in the accident. अगर कार ही नहीं है तो accident कैसे होएगा? Accident is a part of participation because that is the event. If the event is not taking place, why are we drawing a diagram then? And there is some person responsible. And all these things has to be connected with the insurance company because the insurance company is supposed to give me the compensation amount. Now, this completes the diagram. See, it can be splitted into different parts. I want information about the person. This is it. I want information about the car. This is it. I want information about the accident. This is it. I want information about the insurance company. This is it. I want information in a combined format about the car and who is the owner of it. This is it. Understanding? Okay, so when we have this diagram, I can easily make out that we are talking about some accident which has taken place of a specific car owned by a specific person. If I want to go one step down, I can check the attribute of each and every entity. And all these things are related with the insurance company because we are expecting some compensation amount for that from that insurance company. This completes your ER diagram. Understanding how a ER diagram is constructed? Okay, so now before we proceed ahead with the next data flow diagram, I think noting down is required of ER diagram and also the mapping system is required. You have not finished? Okay. Note down mapping system. Along with that, also note down ER diagram. Both are required. And then I'll give you that diagram. Finished? 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 Hello? We are starting with the next type of a mapping system, and that is called as the data flow diagram. So concentrate and try to understand what is a data flow diagram. We had discussed about a ER diagram, but ER diagram just shows us the relationship between two entities. It won't show me the process. But in business process management systems, the process is most important rather than the entities that are involved inside the process. So to get a better understanding of a process, we have the data flow diagram. Now, whenever we are talking about a process, we all know that a process is divided into several sub-processes. The data passes from process A to process B, from process B to C, C to D, and so on. And this exercise continues till an input doesn't become an output. We have learned this scenario where we take input, we give it to the process, and the process gives us an output. If required, before presenting the output, it may be required to be stored somewhere, and a new factor comes in that is called as storage. So try to understand this particular process. The data travels from being an input to the process. Data is processed and it is served as output, and many times it is stored somewhere. Okay, this flow, how it flows from which process to which process, from process A to process B. This flow is very important for a person to understand. For accounts, for accounting persons, for accountants, it's important that first a journal entry should be created. After that, it is converted into ledger. After that, it is converted into trial balance. After that, adjustments are being done. And after that, the final report, that is final accounts, is generated. Am I right or wrong? So one needs to understand the data flow, which was missing in ER diagram. So the problem or the deficiency of ER diagram we are removing in a data flow diagram. So what is a data flow diagram? It's a graphical representation of what? Of the data flow, which is starting from point A to point B. Point A is the start of a process and point B is ending of an process. It describes the entire process right from the input to the actual process to the storing if required and then the final output. Understanding? So here there are some components. Number one is called as entity, and now I need not explain you what is entity. Okay? The entity is nothing but a form which starts and which has to end. Which starts and which has to end. Take any manufacturing process. The start is a tomato and end is a tomato sauce. So tomato is also an entity and tomato sauce is also an entity. The documents that you have collected from the transactions generated is an entity. And the final accounts, that is the report that you are preparing for presentation to the top level management, is also an entity. So the start and stop is treated over here as entity. In different style, we can call it as the source of data and the destination of the data. Okay? Now, the most important thing that was missing in a ER diagram was the process. So here we are showing the process. A process is shown with the help of a rectangle where the corners are rounded and a line in between. This is the way you are supposed to show a process, or you can show a process with the help of an oval shape. It has been shown over here. That is the process shown in a data flow diagram in this way. Now, in a data flow diagram, we said that there could be a possibility that we are required to store the data before actual output. So that is shown with the help of a rectangle with its right side missing. Okay, or you can show it with the help of two parallel lines. Anyways, you can do it. And the most important, the data flow, from which process to which process. Now, everyone will feel satisfied. Yes, data flow diagram is complete. But for me, for an expert, I would say, still this data flow diagram is not showing how the process works. If you see there, it will show you the process. The process which was missing in the ER diagram, that process is being shown. Yeah, this is the process. But how that process is working, that's the core, that's the soul of data processing that is missing. Okay, that we'll learn in the next part. The advanced version of data flow, which is a flow chart. But that's later on. First, let's try to understand this data flow diagram. So now, have you understood what is a data flow diagram? Remember, only one line in data flow diagram. The data flow is important. How the data moves from which process to which process. So these are the four components. Now, let's try to draw or construct a data flow diagram for a small process. I am going in a bank, I want to withdraw some money from bank. So how this particular process can be shown with the help of a data flow diagram. Shall I start? Okay. So, I am the customer of a banker, am I right? So obviously I become the entity. Hello? I am the customer. Now, when I go in bank, I want to withdraw money. So I will be filling the withdrawal slip, right? And what is that? Is it an entity? Filling withdrawal slip is an entity? It's a process. And how process is shown? Process is shown with the help of a oval shape. Now, a data, hello, the data has to flow. The data has to flow from customer to withdrawal slip. What is the data that is flowing? The most important is the account number. There are n number of attributes, I understand, but I cannot take each and every attribute. The account number is very important, and the amount which I want to withdraw. Understanding? Hey, please. Are you understanding this part? Once the withdrawal slip is been filled, we give that slip to that accountant. That accountant in bank is technically, or in banking terms, is called as teller. Okay, we are giving this information. We are passing this slip to the teller. So this info, whatever info was filled inside that withdrawal slip, it is now been passed to the teller. Let's try to understand what this teller does. First things first, he will check for the validation, or he will check whether this particular person has an account in this bank, and whatever account number he has given, whether it is right, whether that account number belongs to this particular person. Verification again is a process. Here, the signature of that particular person is also checked. I'll write the complete thing. Is it fine? Okay, now, how that verification is being done? This particular account number and the name will be checked in the available database. Database. Use your common sense. Database is nothing but storage. Storage is shown with the help of a rectangle with right hand side missing, or parallel lines. Anything can do. Hey, we are checking for the account number and the name, whether it is proper or not. Is it fine? Acha, listen. If the account number is missing, straight away there will be an exit. But I am not talking about invalid transactions. That's a different story. If, then, else, all these things will come. We are talking about a valid process. So, we will get the checking condition as true. Yes, this particular thing is valid. So, this particular customer database will be giving information, or the data will now flow again to that process, that this particular process is valid. Understanding? So now account verification is being done. Now we would process the transaction. We would process the transaction, that is withdrawing money from our account. Okay. So again, that is a process. We are processing the transaction, and for processing the transaction, we have to again give the account number. Now this is verified, and the amount that has to be debited from my account. So all this data is now given to the process transaction. Now before actually withdrawing the money and handing it over to me, there are some banking procedures or there is some accounting entries required to be done. Do you know what is that? You have to debit my account. And debiting my account means changes are required to be made in the customer database. So, this particular transaction is now acting upon the customer database, that is debit account. Account is debited. When the account is debited, don't you think I will be having a new balance, a reduced balance, and that reduced balance will be given to the process transaction, because when money is been withdrawn from bank, the bank also tells you na what is the balance amount. So this data is now passing to the process. Now this data is now passing to the process. Now the process has debited my account and the process also has the new balance. Now all these things is now given to a person. That person is supposed to give me cash. Again, that is a process. And this process will be giving a specific amount to this particular process called as pay cash. And the new balance is also being shown in the pay cash. And then this pay cash will be given to the final customer. This pay cash will be given to the final customer, and that is in technical terms called as receipt. Okay. Now it looks very simple. It looks very simple. Going there, filling the form, giving the form, taking the cash and going home. But when you actually see the process from business point of view, there are many processes required to be done. Filling up of the withdrawal slip is my work. Okay, but validation or verification of account is very, very important over here. Okay, and that is been done by checking it through the customer database. Processing of the transaction, here also there is if and else. Suppose I am withdrawing 5,000 rupees and in my account there is only 1,000 rupees. Again, here this particular process has to give an error, but I said we are not considering the error part, or we are not considering the if else part. New amount is given and the customer is given cash. This is how a data flow diagram is being constructed. As I told you, there is a problem in this data flow diagram. How this process is done is not shown. They are just saying verify the account. They are just saying process the transaction. But how? There are some arithmetical operations required to be done in processing, which is not shown in a data flow diagram, and that will be shown in a flow chart. So is the data flow diagram clear to you? Okay. So before you draw this, okay, you can do this both simultaneously. Finish. have finished a break of 15 minutes. And if you have not finished, obviously no break for you. Break, 15 minutes. 1-5. Before I start with flowcharts, I need to give some important tips to the students. Rather than saying important tips, I would say I need to give some information to the students. In the break, some students came to me and said, sir, how are we supposed to study? Because whatever we are reading in the module, that is very difficult. What to do? I said, I'll be giving them notes. That is, in Chennai, it is called as material. You call it as material. Okay, so I will be providing with this material to you. Okay, now, the next thing, was, okay, in module there are no question answers. At the back of the chapter also there are no question answers. How will we come to know what is the question and what is the answer? Don't worry. The notes, the material which I'll be giving to you will be in the form of question and answers only. A preview of this I am showing you right now. This is what I have prepared. Now this is the draft copy. This is the draft copy which I had prepared. Okay. This is my copy. It is still in the process of proofreading. I have given the data to the typist. Now what the typist has given me, I have to check. See, this is question number 1. Explain the term business process management. And here you will be seeing the answer. Okay. This is, write a note on business process management principles and practices. Now that typist, I don't know who the typist was, he copy pasted that entire table, but that is not required. So I have given a note over there, table not required. Check statement construction and retype it. So this is in the process of again building up. Now explain various business process. Number 1, accounting. So explanation is given of accounting and the diagram is also given. Okay. Then the process flow is also explained. Then the sales. As I had explained, same things is been given in this notes. Some students, rather than saying some students, I would say all students again have a problem. Sir, it is all theory. How will we remember it? And for that, I also had the same problem. So this is the homework that I had done, which you are writing. So once you know these points, automatically this answer is ready. If you are not able to think that what this point is exactly, then you can refer these notes. Understanding? And I am quite sure you will be able to crack these exams. And there are many students who are not still satisfied. Sir, what book to refer? Let me tell you, you need not refer your module also. If you can just digest these notes, it will be enough. No need to refer any other book. But it does not mean that you have these notes, you will pass. You have to read. And to understand what is written in these notes, you have to attend the lecture. Understanding? Otherwise, I will start a printing house, I will print these notes and I will sit on the counter and sell these notes. Why to give a lecture then? We are starting with the next mapping system, and that is called as flowchart. ER diagram had a problem. ER diagram had a problem. The process was not shown. Only the relationships were shown. Right? So we came across a new type of a technique called as data flow diagram. In that data flow diagram, we had shown the process. But how that process works was not shown. So we are now starting with the next one, and that is called as a flow chart. What is a flow chart? A flow chart is a diagrammatic representation of data flow and logic. Process is all about logic. You have the marks in 3 subjects of a student, and the output required is his total, his average, his result, whether he is passing or not, and if he is passing, what class he has got, what class he has achieved. That is the output required. Now there is a big process. If I name the process, it will be total, process of total, process of average, process of class, and process of result, and process of class. That will be shown in a data flow diagram. But how to find the total, how that process works is not shown. That will be shown in a flow chart. I will be declaring certain variables. I will be declaring certain variables. A variable would be there for storing the name of the student. A variable would be present for storing the roll number of that student or ID of that student. If I am supposed to accept marks in 3 subjects, I will require 3 separate variables for storing the marks. These marks will be infeeded by a user. So these 3 marks or 3 subject marks will be accepted, and it will be stored inside those variables. I have made the provision for input. Now the process starts. All these 3 numbers has to be added. If they are added, obviously a new number will come. Where that will be stored, again I would require a variable. So I have to think now. Now process B requires, that process totaling requires one more variable. So that variable I will call it as TOT, tot. So tot equal to M1 plus M2 plus M3. How that process works will be shown in that process, and that will be done in a flow chart. Once the total is done, it will be sent to the next process, and that is average. How do you get an average? It is total divided by, in this example there are 3 subjects, so total divided by 3. But that has to be stored somewhere. So I require one more variable in that particular process, and that is called as average. So one more variable added, average, equal to total divided by 3. Now I need to find out whether that person is passing or not. A student passes only when he scores greater than or equal to 35 in individual subject. Now it depends upon different courses and different, CA institute is different, CS is different. I am talking very general. You need to score greater than or equal to 35 in each and every subject. So that process which will give me the result will be having decision boxes. Is marks 1 greater than or equal to 35? Decision number 2. Is marks 2 greater than equal to 35? Then decision number 3. Is marks 3 greater than equal to 35? If each and every decision is saying yes, then pass, else fail. This is how the process is working. Now the same data will be passed, pass or fail, will be passed to what? Class. I need to pass the average figure to the process class. Now in class, I'll be finalizing the class. First things first, a student will be getting class only if he is passing. So I need to put up the first decision box saying, is the student passing? If yes, then only the rest of the process will work. If no, then obviously no class for the student who is failing. So if the student is passing, if average greater than equal to 75, class is distinction. If average is greater than 60, greater than equal to 60, and at the same point of time it is less than 75, the class is first class, and so on. So a flow chart gives you a broader picture of the process. I would say it shows you how the process is working, and that is the significance of flow chart. So we say a flow chart is a diagrammatic representation of data flow and logic, and there is nothing better than a flow chart. Till last time, till last batch, that means I was drawing around 40-45 flow charts in the classroom itself. But with this new syllabus, I don't think I'll be able to solve this many. I'll see how much I can fit in, whatever time remains. If any, I'll be drawing some flow charts. At least I'll draw those flow charts which will give you different types of flow charts. Like one is a processor flow chart, one is a decision making flow chart, one is a looping flow chart, one is a complex decision making flow chart. All these types of flow chart we'll be seeing, provided I get time. Okay. So now basically we'll start with the various components inside the flow chart. Now we are talking about a flow chart. I said a flow chart is a diagrammatic representation of data flow and logic. How the data flows, that has to be shown. And how a process works, that is nothing but the logic. Both these things will be shown inside a flow chart. This flow chart gives you the algorithm. Algorithm is nothing but the actual instructions or actual commands which are working on a process or which are working on the data. That is called as algorithm, or it is the process, it is the actual program which is running on the data. Now there are some symbols used. See, for every different technique, the symbols are different. Don't try to mix them. Whenever we are talking about a process has to start and a process has to stop. How that will be shown in a flow chart? It will be shown with the help of an oval shape. Now don't get confused. Oval shape here was process and here it was attribute. You have to remember it, can't help it. In a flow chart, the oval shape is used for showing start and stop. There's one more option you can have. You can also use a capsule if you want. Capsule. But see to it that if you are using a capsule for start, you should be using a capsule for stop. It should not change. Oval shape for start and capsule for stop. That's not allowed. Then we said in the definition, a flow chart is a diagrammatic representation of data flow. That means you need to show the flow of the data. Flow means directions and directions means arrows. Only 4 types of flow lines are allowed. Top to bottom, bottom to top, left to right and right to left. I should not see a diagonal. This direction is not allowed. There were many students in the last batch who used to draw curves. The flowchart was so big they didn't understand now where to take this data. So this to the next page, then on to the bottom of the page, to the start of the next page. They used to do anything, but all these things are not allowed. Only straight lines, only vertical and horizontal. That's it. That's called as the flow lines. Then the most important part of a flow chart is showing the processing, how the data process, and that is shown inside a rectangle. Here rectangle is the entity, but here it is a processing. The processing is to be shown in a rectangle. We all know that processing requires input and it gives output. If there is no input, process will not take place. And if no output is expected, why to do that process? So we have a box for input and output. It's a parallelogram. If you know geometry very well, this shape is called as parallelogram. How did they got this word? God knows. Okay, that is shown by input and output. Now, when I was discussing the example of whether the student is passing or not, I said a decision is required to be taken. Decision is marks 1 greater than equal to 35? Either yes or no. Such type of constraints, such type of conditions are shown inside a condition box. And last but not the least is called as a connector. Now you'll ask me, what is a connector? See, some processes are very big. I cannot fit the entire process in one page. I have to go to other page. So how will I link the diagram of page 1 with diagram 2? Where have you stopped, and from the next page, from where to start? That is a very complex thing, and that is been simplified with the help of a diagram or with the help of a circle called as connector. Connector will stop that particular page, and the same connector will start the next page. So you get the continuity, you get the flow of data even though the pages are changing. That is nothing but a connector, and that's nothing but something called as a flow chart. Right now, I am not taking any example of flowchart because one example will not be clear or is not enough to making the concept clear. At the end of the 5th chapter, that means after I finish off with the 5th chapter, I will be doing certain flowcharts. I won't ask you to do, but I'll do it myself. At least I plan to take 5 to 10 flowcharts. If time permits, more. Okay? Now, before I turn the page, will you take down these flowcharts symbols?